I'll just
Well,
be like,
we'll just, yeah. All right. I have an article too. It's actually kind of cool. So, all right, three, two, one. How's it going, everyone? John here with my good buddy Josh, and we are the co-hosts of Tap, Rack, and Cryptid, which is under the Spear Talk banner, and it's something that kind of drove from the minds of our. Uh, I don't know. I don't know how to say it. Like, I don't know where we even came up with this idea, but all I know is I had two previous episodes on Spear Talk where we had Lyle Blackburn and Ken Gearhard, both two individuals who were very predominant in the cryptozoology field on. And Josh, there was a co-host, and we started talking, and one thing led to another, and so we are here, folks. So thank you for joining us.
yeah, thanks, guys. I think it definitely comes from our strange time in the service together, talking about weird stuff, working midnight shift or whatever. Our love for everything, music, heavy metal to paranormal to movies and kind of all that good stuff. And years and years down the road, keeping in touch. And it's just kind of a passion that we thought would be a good idea to put into a podcast, especially during the last couple of years with all the awful stuff going on and just want to kind of bring everybody together and on something we all have a passion for.
Do you recall the first time you saw something about Bigfoot or Loch Ness Monster? Like, what was the one creature or thing that you kind of like piqued your interest on this whole thing?
So we could probably get more into it in an episode if we ever cover like a Bigfoot thing, but I think if I were to go back in time, it was my own Bigfoot experience I had growing up in a house with some acreage in New England. Kind of just, a story that kind of traveled over my years that my parents referenced. And then it came to a point when I was growing up that I was like, what was that? And they go, okay, well, I guess we'll tell you this story. So as a kid, I had like night terrors, right? So like you don't know you're having it, but you're screaming. Your parents come in, they deal with it. You go back to bed, or you fall back asleep essentially, but you never knew it happened. So at one point, my mom tells me the story. I'm in like my college years. That she came into the room at one point, and basically I'm screaming, and she sees these red eyes looking in our window of the house. Now, again, we lived on like 5 acres of property. We backed up to kind of some power lines that some of the past guests, Lyle and others, or if you watch enough Bigfoot stuff, Bigfoot is allegedly uses power lines as like a highway. And she saw these red eyes, kind of like the glint looking in the window, and she screams, and then whatever it is turns and walks away. And she recounted feeling the impact of whatever it was on the ground walking away, which means it had to weigh a lot, right? So, that's all well and good. You're just like, oh, it could have been a bear looking in the window. Sure, right? Except the window was probably about 10 feet off the ground. So when you get into that, reality that like it wasn't an experience I had, it was something a parent recalled. It wasn't like a kid dreaming or anything like that. So I think ever since then, and kind of just growing up in the woods in New England with its own paranormal and stuff up there, I was interested probably since then. So,
So okay, and I know we'll talk about this down the line, but I'm super interested now. Like, what you something that large?
mhm.
My first thought was after I cleaned the crap out of my pants. Uh, like, was there any investigation on your mom's part, or like, how did you go to bed the next night and just be uh, like, do you go to bed going, I hope I see it again or get better footage, or do I need to burn this house down because it's being attacked?
Yeah, so like she never told me that story until I was older. So we were far out of that house, and since I was screaming from a night terror, allegedly, it's not something that I remembered seeing or anything like that. It was a total like her story, and when we started running into other like really strange experiences on that property as a family. And for a new house, it wasn't, New England. I mean, you're from the same kind of
Yeah.
region, so like there's a ton of history, but we found random stuff on that property, like chains, cannonballs, like animal skulls, all kinds of really strange stuff. Had like group experiences of hearing things coming up the stairs from the basement that weren't there. Black dogs in the woods when nobody had a dog around there. It was kind of really weird stuff. So, um, Yeah, I don't really. I think like generally growing up, I always felt uneasy on that property, and was kind of glad to move on. And afterwards, had kind of visited back towards there, and still always got kind of like a weird vibe from it. So I don't know if you've had similar
That's
stuff around your house
well,
growing up,
it's
but
like the New England area, especially when you go back to like the colonies and like the whole uh the Native Americans and the pilgrims, the colonists, and all like the wars and battles and like sacred land. And you kind of, I think we do spend the whole episode eventually about like the Wendigo and like the Native American lore and history of this type of stuff, because there is documentation of it. Um, but I've never had any uh like a physical, like a monster animal type experience. I've had some
right,
paranormal stuff, and I'll talk about that down the line. But to sum it up, currently I live in a house that was built in 1870. So the owner, Dr. Samuel Fletcher, was a Civil War doctor who operated both on the North and South during the war. And the first summer we were moved in here, this back in 2001, I just started high school. My mom wanted all the shutters taken off the house, and my dad begrudgingly obliged to take off 200 shutters off his house. And I remember helping him stack them in the basement. Well, that next night, it sounded. My mom woke up to what sounded like people hammering the door, or hammering on the walls, or like something like a shutter that wasn't secure against the house. And she's like, "Jack, Jack, Jack, there's a shutter loose." And he looked over and goes, "Lori, we took all the shutters off the house." And so they walked around that night with flashlights, and there's not a single shutter on the house, and it never happened again. But we always kind of treat it like that's his kind of way of saying,
yeah,
"Hey, like I noticed." And we've had some stuff in the basement. That's where we kept the bodies. And when we had
right,
a dog at the time, there were some rooms the dog would never go into, never follow us
yeah,
in there. He'd stop. And so there's that kind of stuff. But for me to actually appreciate like the monster aspect of it, my parents had this coffee table book on Scotland. And it was like Scotland, Italy, all of, like those generic,
mm,
the perfect Christmas gift for somebody you don't know who the hell you're buying for.
right, right,
And I remember going through it. My mom like, "Oh, have you heard about the Loch Ness monster?" And just the stories and stuff she'd tell me about that. And then when I lost my first tooth, I actually got a book on the Loch Ness monster specifically, and it kind of stuck with me at that age where it's like, oh well, yes, I'm familiar with dinosaurs, but this idea of whatever the Loch Ness monster is or could be
mm.
potentially still out there today. And so for me, that's kind of how I jumped into the whole realm of it.
Yeah. When you guys kind of found out a lot of that history about the house, is that where you guys decided to keep the bodies as well, just down in the basement?
Yeah, we've actually kept going with the embalming and the surgeries. None of
Mm,
us are licensed,
right.
so that's fine. Lately, all we've done now is if they die of malpractice, we just say it's because of COVID. And
That's
so
good.
it's like,
That'd be
we're good. We're good.
perfect.
We're
Perfect.
good.
Yeah.
We get $37,000 and we're
There
good.
you go. See, I never even went with bodies. I just keep a lot of skeletons in my closet, but you
Yeah,
know.
skeletons and human flesh for me is
Yeah.
it's just it's great, great fabric. Uh, so
Jesus.
one of the yeah, he's down there too. So one of the funny cool things about this is obviously Josh and I are gonna have fun with this, very dark humor, whatever. But our goal is to also learn stuff too, whether it's through news, through research. We're gonna have Lyle and Ken on here. We've got some other guests lined up. Funny story, someone that follows the Spear Talk. He's a survivalist. He's a bushcraft expert who has a lot of experience in the woods and stuff. And he reached out to me and go, "Man, I'd love to do Spear Talk, but what's this tap rack thing you guys do? Because I'd love just to talk about survival and preparing for this type of animal attacks and stuff." And it's a subject matter I think that a lot of people are interested in. It resonates with in them, whether they want to believe it or not. It's still something very interesting, and I think we're gonna have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered this with all of our crypto kind of guests, about what their experiences were in the woods, and kind of to pivot off of like some of the spear talk stuff is like, when you're out there doing research, whether it's, paranormal related, or if you're just an outdoors kind of person, what do you do to protect yourself? Because, you're out there, it's all fun, kind of looking for this stuff, and whether you believe in it and it's a serious, research kind of expedition, or whether you're more of a hobbyist and it's a fun time to get out in the woods. It's something you've got to take serious. And if they've had scary encounters while looking for something that's like yet to be completely proven, that could be horrifying. Like, so it's cool to hear what they want to do, but somebody with a lot of time in the woods, a survivalist, like it's always interesting to hear their kind of take on that stuff as well. So looking forward to
Yeah,
that for
it's
sure.
I've been following too, obviously with our friends Kyle or Lyle Blackburn and Ken Gearhard. They've been doing these a lot of these conventions now, especially as stuff opens up. And
Yeah.
I've always wanted to ask them how. Yes, you're in a room full of people, right, that believe in cryptozoology or want to learn about the history and current scientific findings and stuff. But I find people that are so good in this field have to be this good, knowing there's people in another room laughing at them because they think it's all crap or it's not real. And I don't. I'm super impressed with people that are able to be not only really good at what they do and research and study and actual hands-on experience about this stuff, but they believe in what they're doing. And I'm really blown away by people that are able to believe in Bigfoot when 10 people in their household think they're crazy. There's something to that. I think that's something I really want to dig deep into this too, because I'm very someone, I think you are too. It's very analytical. Like, yes, we can joke around with ghosts and Mothman and Chupacabra and all that stuff, but I need to see scientific fact. I'm not going
Right.
to refute someone because I didn't see it, but I'd like to see some stuff here that, you know, help me help you type things.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, we talked to Lyle about that somewhere like around here. We can put the link episode 77 where we interviewed him. But basically, yeah, we get into that. It's like, what do you think's most likely to be, real versus what do you think has kind of been like a oral tradition? It's been passed down and it's a good story. But it was based on kind of a different belief at a different time. But yeah, you start to look into anything that's that level of like kind of fringe. It's yet to be proven or discovered. Everyone in history was like that. Einstein got laughed away from some of his ideas and until they were real. So I think a lot of these guys are just by the interest in the subject, they're kind of on the cutting edge. And at some point, whether they prove what they're passionate about is real or not, who knows? While they're out there, they may find something else that nobody expected to find. So yeah, I think it does warrant a level of seriousness about it, but also understanding that because it's fringe, there's a crazy large group of people who are going to be in it for different reasons. Not all of them the best, but either way, it's a good time. I think all around.
I'm in a lot of those Facebook groups where it's like cryptozoology, dogman of Africa,
Right.
Mothman lives in Memphis, whatever these different groups are. And there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor in there. And then there's a lot of times people will still talk about the Patterson case or famous cases like that. But there's also a lot of it's almost like they don't respect the fact that this could be a thing. It's so easier to refute something, right? Or not believe in it. And times people will post pictures that you and I look at, it's blurry, it's stupid, like clearly it's a shadow. But for that person to have that reaction, that reactionary, like kind of like how something affects them when they see something, like there's something really cool about that people want to believe. And again, not to harp on it, but I do think there's something really cool when people are passionate about something that, and I love the idea that you have people like Kyle, Lyle, Ken, Cliff Barrickman from the Bigfoot group out in Oregon, and all these different groups out there that you're kind of. I desperately want one of these people to find them, or to
Right.
get refutable evidence where they can give the middle finger to everyone who ever doubted them. I think that for me, I would take great happiness in that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's been because we'll cover like a range of subjects on the podcast. We'll cover lighthearted stuff as much as we'll cover news articles and Bigfoot as much as we'll cover paranormal stuff. And I think if you watch a lot of these kind of I guess you'd call them like these organic kind of ground root home organizations that spun up doing paranormal research, there's been an amazing amount of audio and video evidence for a lot of like ghost themed kind of paranormal stuff out there where it's like even if 1% of it is true, like it's shocking. Like, and it definitely is scientific in the sense that like it's been recorded. Like here's the evidence of something
Yes.
there. So if that stuff, which was is a human, held belief through religion or other means to exist, who's to say this other stuff isn't as well? Especially when there's vast tracts of the world that we don't go into, like the Amazon or the Pacific Northwest, where it's like if you ever fly over it, it just never ends. It's a never-ending forest. So,
Even the
um,
ocean's been explored by what 15, not even 20%. And it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
just they found a tribe in the Amazon that's never been recorded or photographed a couple of years ago. That's been living there since whenever. It's the idea of a Bigfoot living in the wood. Like for me, it's much more believable than a lot of the stuff we read in the news today. And
Mm.
it's just like I don't know. I mean, imagine like you're a Bigfoot right now, and they have their kids with them, and they're hiding, and they're like the kids are talking, going, "Man, do you think humans exist? Do you think do you think there's these things my parents talk about are really real?
Yeah.
Like how it's very fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Just it'd be interesting, just like a
Yeah.
whole family of Bigfoot on like a little vacation in like the Pacific Northwest, and just try like kids talking shit about humans and like I
Yeah.
don't believe it, or it'd be super interesting.
Yeah, and Ken talked about that too. I think we talked about like, his belief of what's the most real, likely one to exist, and he thinks it was Bigfoot. And we kind of covered. I remember one of the questions I think we got into was, do you feel that it's something that the lore is established, but is the possibility that it definitely could have existed at one time, and what we've done to kind of as a society, like as destructive as we are, or just the way nature works, is it possible it doesn't exist anymore, and some of the experiences people have are essentially like a ghost experience with like a Bigfoot. Like we kind of got into that talking to him, and it's like kind of a weird because it's like two layers deep into like now you've gone to Bigfoot, now the ghost of Bigfoot. But if you believe in ghosts, like why shouldn't you believe in the ghost of an animal or something that has an intelligence, like that? So it's interesting stuff for sure.
It is. I had Michelle Belanger on Spirit Talk, and she's from Paranormal State. And one of the things we talked about was this idea of history and lore, like Ireland specifically, like the Gaelic tales of this big bad wolf running through the countryside, and the descriptions and the stories and the pictures. And then it goes to the cave paintings of the Native Americans with UFOs or monsters, or the Egyptians with the hieroglyphics and this stuff in the sky and all this these giants. And it's like, what were they seeing back then? Were they experiencing what we are now, which is just lore? Like who told them these tales? If we're gonna go
Right.
back, like it just either these things existed or they existed as what they are today, obviously outside, obviously adaptation changes with the environment, but they saw a bear and it looked like a just a monster giant back to them. To us, it
Right.
looks like a bear, right? So I don't. I would love someone just to do a deep dive on that.
Yeah. Out of all that stuff, like if you were to pick one, like what kind of topic interests you the most? Because it's such a broad ranging thing, from like sea creatures to
It
land based
is.
stuff to UFOs. Like what do you think you feel is the most
I
kind of
think for us to be successful on the podcast, and by successful, I don't mean find the creatures and create a petting zoo. I mean have like a good discussion. Like I love if we get super specific to a certain creature, whether it's chupacabra, mothman, reptilian shapeshifter, yeti, Sasquatch, like what the differences are, stuff like that. I love the idea that there's a physical like footprints, right?
Mm,
Or claw marks, or like an audio, like you said, like a scream or something. The physical idea of it interests me because it's there. Whether
right.
it's man-made or whatever it is, it's still proof of something, whether it's a
Yeah.
lie or truth. And I gravitate towards that, but I also gravitate towards the idea of research and history, and I love the idea of that type of stuff being part of it as well. But I mean,
Mm,
give me a man. Bigfoot's just so interesting because it's like he could be looking at us right now, and it's
yeah.
just like I do like the idea of that.
I'd have to look it up, but I don't know if I could find it by a quick Google. But essentially, there was this weird theory. I don't know if I had sent it to you or not, but it goes off of, it's basically like the valley hypothesis or something like that, and it goes off, so humans have like this innate fear of something that looks human but is not. And so what that infers is at some point humanity encountered something that had human traits but in fact was not human, and it caused them to have a fear of it. So the question is like,
Ooh.
what was that? What did they encounter? Like, why is that so ingrained in us now? And it was related kind of to like, like an android or something like that. It's like, you can kind of tell if like if a robot is a person or if it's fake now, but in the future, who knows? But if you go the other direction far enough back, like what were they sitting around a campfire making tools one night, and all of a sudden something popped up on them? You're like, yeah, that doesn't look like one of us. Like, what was that? So kind of interesting things like that. I kind of like getting into the more like root, like where did the lore begin? But I'm on the same page as you of like what is there evidence of? And for me, the UFO stuff has been crazy
Oh,
the last couple years. With, I mean, if you're looking for hard evidence, the government releasing videos that they're like, this is real and we don't know what it is. That's been really
military generals, well established, well respected, different people in military branches and government agencies saying we don't know what this is.
yep,
And I found it super funny that that stuff came out during the pandemic when it's the only time in history that stuff could come out. People are like,
yeah,
"Yeah, but do I need a face mask to go buy a bag of Funyuns?"
right,
Like we are so dumb to this stuff
yeah.
right now. It's like that. What was that video of the on the
The tic,
battleship where it's like all this
oh, the
stuff
tic
coming out?
tac,
Yeah, you just like,
yeah,
dude, that stuff is hard evidence, and sure, it might come out where it's this is actually what it was, but what if it isn't?
yeah.
And it's like
And
we have
it was a weird nexus too, because you had like the government releasing stuff, right? And you had kind of like Tom DeLonge, like with
yes.
the To the Stars, like as a weird nexus with that, and a lot of really strangely qualified people that kind of work in my neck of the woods, showing up as part of his team. Like, oh yeah, we're looking into this.
Actually, Hot Topic. They all work at Hot Topic with Josh.
They'll work.
Yeah.
Yeah, we sell chain necklaces and nose rings. But no, it's just it's a weird, like, this guy who I'm not gonna crap on, somebody from outside of the know having an interest and the means to collect people in the know and put forward an effort. Like, I think there's nothing wrong with that. But it's really strange, and for them to be kind of right about a lot of stuff and exposing a lot of things people didn't know about. So yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of what they come up with. And who knows, maybe we can get some of them on at some point if we're lucky
Oh, we'll
enough.
get Dr. Greer on here. That's easy. And people like that too, where it's like we might not actually agree with the guests, but they're people that are respected in their field. They put the years in more so than us, and let's just have an open discussion about certain stuff. Or are aliens hurt? Are they going to attack us, or are they friendly? Or
Yeah.
it's just there. No, I think it's the avenue to have like a really healthy conversation through this, navigate through these kind of topics is kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I look forward to talking to those guys for sure.
So one of the other things too, what's cool about you is you're very into the gaming. Now I'll play a PS4 or whatever, PS5, Xbox, Call of Duty. Like I'll dabble. If it's violent, I'm playing it, right?
Yeah.
But you're really good with computers and building your own cyber. You're like War Games, Matthew Broderick, Last Starfighter, whatever that is. And so you've been playing these games for all these long years, but you recently started the game Bigfoot. But if you
Mhm.
could, one of the things on this podcast I love to discuss is like the role of cryptozoology in pop culture, whether it's video games, TV shows, comic books, and stuff like that. You have actually a firm grasp specifically in like the gaming world where these type of creatures are prevalent in your world. Like even the games you play in the where it's like ancient civilizations type stuff, there's a kraken, there's a whatever it is. So
Right.
it's that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so I think my interest, like I've always been a gamer. I mean, we probably were both growing up during like the video game golden age,
Oh,
and
GoldenEye, Wolfenstein, Doom.
oh yeah, N64, Nintendo, all that stuff. And then
Yep.
kind of so that's a foundation I have. But I think where it started to mix with like this topic of the podcast is really only been the last couple years, and I think that's the you can credit like Lyle and Kyle and all those guys about uh bringing paranormal and cryptozoology to the forefront, and obviously people see that it moves its way up the chain, it becomes movies, people have an interest in the topic, so it's going to be represented across all media. But with video games, like it's kind of shocking it wasn't there earlier, because it's a natural audience to advertise it to. So So yeah, so on Long Dogs of War on Twitch, once we get like a regular schedule for streaming going, we're gonna put some of that content on YouTube as well. And that's we're gonna touch on Bigfoot and games like that. There's a couple other alien themed kind of horror games where you deal with like experiencing a classic farmhouse abduction, M Night Shyamalan style. And yeah, there's definitely like an up and coming kind of new genre of paranormal and crypto zoology themed games that we'll get into that we can play together once you get kind of like a system that can do that on the road. But definitely happy to have viewers join us, and maybe even have a play along where they can jump in
And
and
that's the other thing too. Like, if you could kind of talk about how that works, because I don't play these games, but especially during the pandemic, Josh would go live, and I'd watch on the Twitch stream, and all basically I did was just create a username or some centaur name I have, obviously. And I would just watch Josh and his friends play these games. And some were combat games, but some were sword and sandal fantasy stuff, or some were hunting Bigfoot.
sword
And
and sandal.
yeah,
It's where
it's
you
like
have the
I'm
sword.
Spartacus. I am Spartacus. And I was covered in baby oil in a loincloth. And I was really immersed into it. But
Yeah,
for those that aren't into gaming, I actually love watching people play video games, especially if the people are really good at it. Now, I won't go to Apex, those tournaments, or I won't. I mean, I'll watch
yeah,
the highlights of people are really good at Street Fighter, but to watch people having fun playing a game with you, like you guys, like it is a rush. And if when we can finally set that up where we can all join in and watch you guys. And here's the thing, you could type in real time, you could talk shit, you could
yeah.
make
Oh yeah,
comments, you could tell them to kill the person their party is lagging behind them or whatever.
yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, what I like about it is it's kind of like, back in the day, if you wanted to see what a game was like, you either had it, you hope you had a friend had it, or you'd watch one of the handful of shows where maybe they do like a game review to see if it's something you'd be into. But now, with things like Twitch or, if you're streaming on YouTube or maybe a couple other platforms that are out there, you can basically scroll through the games you have an interest in, find the person that kind of resonates with you, and you can watch them and support them on their journey to trying to do it full time. And that's kind of what I like to do. But yeah, basically, once we get a time scheduled that's repeatable for my schedule, we'll jump in there. Viewers are always invited to join if there's room, but they're always invited to just watch if that's all they want to do. But I don't like I like that it's not competitive in the sense that, like, you're kind of just hanging out with me and we're playing a game together. And it's kind of just fun to talk questions and talk about either the podcast or like what do they think about the game or even just the lore behind the game. And you're kind of able to do that through these modern platforms. So it's been fun for me to do as a hobby, especially over the last couple of years with the pandemic. But yeah, we'll get you in there, and anybody else who wants to join. There's a couple new ones that are coming out that we'll probably get into here down the
Yeah,
pike. But
we could do like video game reviews, or we could just talk about and have
yeah,
some of those people on there that because the Bigfoot game, which people aren't aware, definitely check it out on YouTube, the highlights and stuff. You're basically searching through the woods, different campsites, trailers, and this Bigfoot is lurking, and you have
yeah.
to be prepared to fight him or kill him, whatever it is. I mean, it's
Yeah,
obviously
I think it's
it's
up to like 3 or 4 players, yeah, and he's hunting you and all of the, Bigfoot kind of, I don't wanna say the tropes, but, like, the things that are associated with him come in. There's
yes,
tree knocking that you're like, "Ah, he's close." He's very difficult to kill,
yeah, he's
and
super
yeah,
horny,
he's super he's super
yeah.
horny, and you have an array of weapons, and you can unlock
All right,
weapons in the game if you get the locker combinations, and but yeah, it's a creepy game, and like I played that before we went out on kind of the little Bigfoot expedition I went on with a couple
yes,
friends where I live tweeted a couple pictures at least because I had bad reception, but while I'm out there, I'm like, it's creepy, man. Like when you start
yeah.
getting into a giant missing link in the woods that's could rip you apart, like it could be terrifying. So yeah.
One of the other things we're going to try to do every episode is talk about news stories, right, and stuff. Whether it's we obviously we'll touch upon like the famous Patterson cases and stuff like that. That's been in the history books and stuff. But as new stuff comes in, and yesterday, which I came across this, the author is Sierra Sistone. And the title of the article is "Researchers are using eDNA to track lynx, wolverines, and more." And basically, environmental DNA in snow tracks can help conservationists find and study rare carnivores. Now, what I found super interesting about this is that this science officer Golding has been, and we'll share the article on the link here too as well. But for the past 5 years, she has been developing this novel method of using environmental DNA or eDNA found in snow tracks to identify rare forest carnivore species, including Canada lynx, wolverines, fishers, martens, and montane red foxes. And so I love the idea that as we talk about scientific research, where as these footprints come in, they can start tracking what animal did what, migration
Mm.
patterns, and if it's a new animal or a hybrid, kind of put that stuff together. I thought that was like talk about perfect timing too, where it's just
Yeah.
like now we have scientists again, real people, and they're really good at their jobs with their history and training and all the education putting more credence to scientific methods of footprints and stuff. So again, stuff like that, I'm excited to talk about out here.
Yeah. I'm trying to look it up real quick because that reminded me of do you remember that show was like tried to compete with the X Files, I guess, Millennium?
Yeah, so Millennium, well, it's the same creator, Chris Carter. It was Lance
Right.
Hendrickson. And and they kind of overlap too, some episodes together.
It could have been.
Where
But you
he,
remember the guy who played the detective?
it wasn't Lance Hendrickson, was it?
Was he the one in Alien and
Lucas Black?
Predator?
Yeah, Lance Hendrickson.
Okay, it was so he was in a movie. I'll have to find the title. Maybe I'll try to link it in the thing. But he was in a movie that was like about hunting Bigfoot,
Yeah, it
and
was Sasquatch.
yeah, and they went out in the woods with like a new device. This was like years ago that they
We
were
watch
hoping to
this at
get
your house.
DNA. Did we watch it here? I mean, we watch some questionable things at the
Yes.
house. But
I
yeah, like
that
what was that
that was
fantasy world where everybody was naked all the time?
we watched that. We watched the
The
first four
Glaive?
seasons. The first four seasons of the Oak Island. Yeah, what
Yeah,
was we watched? Or Pet Cemetery, Night Shift, and some
Night
swashbuckler
Shift.
movie where they're all nude running around.
No, that was like a fantasy movie, and like the one girl was like a female barbarian, and
Yeah,
her like
it's
special fighting
so
tactic was like I fight
stupid.
naked, and we're just like carry on.
Can I do that? Are you a doctor? Yes, but I perform my best surgery nude.
God. Oh my, I have to find
Uh,
that. I have to watch
yeah,
that
for
tonight.
sure.
But no, he in
But
that movie that kind of like it's like movies predicting the future. Like he had that device where they were like any DNA, it can basically tell like what the roots of the combination are, and you know he ends up like not like breaking it so Bigfoot doesn't kill him. But yeah, that was it is crazy how kind of the movies predict where things are
right,
eventually going
or
to end up.
maybe the technology's always been there, and they use the movies as a means to kind of soften people's blow to
Yeah,
realizing this stuff's out there. I mean,
yeah,
but here's the thing: imagine if this evidence or this type of science was out there back with Patterson,
yeah.
or back with these people who get these molds of Bigfoot or whatever it is, these claw bar. Like now, you can start putting stuff together and hopefully get some answers.
Right. Yeah, no, that's super interesting. Um, let's see. I can do one of mine. I found a kind of interesting article. It's not the U.S. base, but which kind of makes it more interesting because we don't hear a lot about some of these things in other countries so much. I know like Josh Gates goes into it a lot on his show, like the different cultural differences with some of these monsters. But anyway, New York Post article um, from November last year about a man claiming he was stalked by a terrifying dogman monster in the Australian outback, which I've never heard of an Australian themed dogman or Bigfoot or anything. So that's kind of interesting.
I mean,
But it's
Australia itself will kill you a million different ways,
oh
from
yeah,
bugs, snakes to flying squirrels. Like you're gonna
yeah,
die.
and now a million and one.
Yeah.
With it says a man bizarrely claimed he was stalked by a terrifying dog man, and again we'll put the link in, and there's some pictures in here which is going to be fun for people to look at. We can bring them up somewhere on the screen while I'm reading it. Um, but terrifying dogman monster in the Australian outback, and says he has picture proof. The fisherman called John Wildley claims he was left petrified for a month after. It's a little dramatic. A month, come on. After encountering the supposed half dog, half human creature on two separate occasions. Speaking on the Bellevue Paranormal and UFO podcast, so shout out to those guys. The Aussie insisted he was followed by what he was branded a dog man and claims he thought he was going to be killed. John was fishing from his kayak on Boxing Day last year when he says the first incident happened. I noticed every time I took a stroke with the paddle of my kayak, whatever this thing was, it was taking a stride to each paddle I was taking. Now, why that's scary to me is that's like an ambush kind of tactic of like masking your sound with something else.
Yes.
So that's high intelligence, high functioning. He says he stopped a bit and the sound stopped in the brush too. And then I thought it was a bit odd. So I took off paddling again. And as soon as I started, he did it again with every stroke of the paddle, not of
You
anything
see,
else.
we do have to tell people that we're not sure what he was stroking.
Right. We're sure it was the
Yeah.
paddle, but we're not so sure. Yeah. But he freaked out. John took a snap and claims he captured the dogman on camera. He actually got a photo. What he thinks is a few people. I reckon it's a dogman. He added, although he was petrified, as it was running, I was smashing trees out of the way. I don't know if they were breaking or if it was hitting them. But apparently he made it out. And yeah, the pictures, I mean,
Like, so people that imagine this guy go to therapy with the therapist is like, oh,
oh,
it's probably a relationship thing, or he doesn't talk to his kids, or he
yeah.
got bad eating habits. So yeah, I was kayaking on Boxer Day. She's like, yeah, can you continue? And this dog man chased me for 2 hours, and she's like, what the hell? Like,
And you're
how do
like,
you?
what? And then he's like, here's a series of podcasts and YouTube videos you have to do to get caught up on the subject.
Like,
But
so okay, I can't wait to see the pictures too, because I'm kind of
yeah,
curious.
yeah. I mean, I'll send them to you. They're in the chat. I mean, we can link them and put them on the screen. But they're convincing. I don't know what else it could be because they don't necessarily. I don't think they have bears there. If we have any kind of listeners or people who are from Australia or have spent a period of time there, I'd be curious to hear about like how prevalent is the dog man myth down there, because I haven't heard of it being popular down there before. So I'm curious to know, like, is this kind of a prevalent legend like in the outback or different aspects, different parts of the country? So curious to hear if
Yeah,
anyone
I'd be
has any.
curious too to maybe talk to like a person that works in the environment down there. That what kind of animals could it be though, right? Like,
Right,
what animal could stand upright or look hunched
right,
over like a dog soldier running through the
yeah.
outback?
Like, do they have 9 foot wombats? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't.
maybe.
I don't think so, but I
There
sure
was a
don't.
great it's in the Howling franchise. I believe it's
Mm.
Howling either 3 or 4. 5 was the Freak Show one, but how one of the 3 or 4 they were in the Outback. It was called Howling 3, the marsupials.
Oh, they
And
had
this
an Australia one, really?
yes, yeah. So
I did not see that one.
it was all steeped in like the indigenous tribe, like this creature would manifest through this whatever, and the female, and there was a werewolf sex scene in this, and the
Oh,
female was
perfect.
giving birth, and she had like a pouch, so it was like very marsupial. But yeah, again, just Hollywood. I mean, maybe it's a true story. Maybe this guy actually stumbled upon this family
Is
procreating.
is that I think it's on Netflix. Howling 4 is from 1988 is on Netflix. It says the original Nightmare. You sure it was 4?
It's 3 or 4. It's called
Let me,
Howling 3. It's like Howling marsupials.
Howling 3. Because
Yeah.
I'm the only reason I'm looking it up is because I think it'd be cool to do a Netflix watch party
Oh, any one
with
of those
some of
movies.
our viewers. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, it is. Okay, it is. Howling 3 Netflix. Marsupials. You're right. The marsupials.
I couldn't tell you what day of the week it is, but I can
uh,
tell you what episode, what movie
yeah.
the marsupials were in.
I'd be like, John, what's the day and date and when do we have to be up for work? And you're like, I don't know, but have you seen the Howling Marsupials?
That's actually a great thing we could do too with our viewers. Like once a month, pick a
Yeah.
movie that's steeped in some sort of lore, whether it's Bigfoot, Dogman,
The
uh,
Leprechaun, whatever.
Chupacabra. Feast is a good one too. It's kind of a play on the Chupacabra with like
Okay.
Henry Rollins. That's a good one too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's good stuff we can talk about as well.
There's that other one. I think I sent it to you. I don't know the name of it, but it was that vampire one on the border, southern border. That one was terrifying. It was documentary almost style. Like,
Oh yeah, what was that?
I'll
There's a
we'll
lot, so we definitely got
right.
to dabble in this.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so like our goal here is every week or every episode, to kind of just have fun with uh, whether it's a specific topic or the cryptozoology in general.
Yeah.
We are not claiming to be experts whatsoever. We are experts, I would say, in our actual careers.
Maybe.
Um, but
Maybe.
yeah, that's even pushing it. But we generally do care about this the subject, the topic, and we want to have fun with it. We want to learn with you guys, have fun. If anytime there's questions or you guys have ideas, definitely throw them into the community area. This will be housed on the Spirit Talk YouTube channel, so feel free to just post and share in our community there. Any questions you have, we'll have fun with that. But I know Josh has ideas for merch.
Yep.
Something I don't know if I told you, but I have ready to go. I had 50 magnets made, and I had
Mm,
50 cool stickers
awesome.
made with the logo of our thing, so we could possibly do some giveaways for people there or something like that for the
Yep.
podcast, and for 50 people leave a comment or whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, we just have a lot of cool stuff going on, and we're gonna have some serious fun with this.
Yeah, no, if anyone has any ideas for, if there hasn't been any merch on the Spear Talk side that people kind of want to see, we'd love to be able to kind of try it over here. Whatever it's mugs, hoodies, anything. I know you've covered that really well. So if there's anything else that's of interest, we'd be happy to do that. I know you had something you wanted to mention, kind of about Kyle or Lyle.
Yeah, so I definitely want to get them involved too, especially when it comes to those guests like them. Myself, Dave Spinks is another guest I had in Spirit Talk that would love to do this with us. Steve Greer, those type of people. I definitely think we should get them involved in here as well, because ultimately it's such a niche community that people either love or despise because they think it's horseshit. And so we want to be that. We want to help that community in terms of people just coming together, having a good time, and supporting those guys and girls who put out books. I know Lyle is just had the anniversary of when he released the Boggy Creek
Mm,
book, and he's doing a cool merch line with that anniversary of the movie and the first appearance of the creature. And so
yep.
stuff like that, we're going to be champions of. I know Dave Spinks has this thing in West Virginia coming up
Yep.
this March, actually. I think we're a convention where people come into a store and doing all the stuff with oddities and stuff. So whatever we could do to help harvest and like bring together people that want to talk about the stuff, we're going to do it too. So
Yeah, there's a lot of good, because there's obviously community connections. There's a lot of good stuff coming out with the small town monster stuff. If everyone's a fan of
yes,
their stuff over there, I'm a huge fan. I love their stuff. I'm probably going to be backing their Kickstarter they have coming out soon. So hopefully we can. I'd love to get those guys on too because they put out.
yep,
I'd venture to say they're probably one of the top, groups of documentary guys that are kind of putting real effort into this subject in an entertaining way. So yeah, I'd love to kind of talk more about their stuff and maybe we can watch some of their movies and documentaries as well.
yeah.
And
No, I'm all for it. I think it's great, and yeah, we got some awesome surprises. Like I said, there's guests that we already kind of talked about that want to jump on or we want to reach out to. But again, any ideas, people out there, whether they're authors or researchers or TV personalities, or hey, it could be one of you guys or girls that want to jump on here
yeah,
and talk for an hour about experiences or just have fun with us. We are again very. I think we're kind of funny. We're different. We're bizarre. I don't know what else we are, but we're gonna have fun with it. So again, for anyone that's on the fence about whether they want to listen to this thing every time it airs, I think you should.
yeah.
So
Yeah, we could do a happy hour episode once a month or a happy hour. I know you probably get access to it on the accounts too now. Twitter's doing kind of those like group voice chats where everybody can join in
yeah,
and
we could do all that stuff.
we can do
Since
some of
the
that.
page is so
So
big now that we could do very specific live show. We could do a live show with you guys on YouTube. Uh, what got me thinking, is there a liquor, a beer, or wine,
mm,
whatever it is that's alcoholic that's geared with cryptozoology? Like maybe we could do like a taste testing one
mm,
or like something like that, right? Like kind of research some beers or whiskey.
yeah.
It's like called Loch Ness Monster Neck Sweat, 40% alcohol, or
Yeah. Yeah, I know,
Bigfoot's. Yeah.
the Kraken you got Kraken
Oh, I
rum, you
crack it
got,
wrong. That's a classic.
I'm from Rhode Island originally, so, Narragansett Brewery, they used to do
Yep.
they did a line of, like, Lovecraftian,
Oh,
beers
so yeah. So
with,
we should.
like
That's we
yeah,
could do reviews there. We could have fun with that.
yep.
Just get schlitzed watching Howling
Schlitzed.
3
Yep.
marsupials.
And and who knows? Anything could happen at that point. If
Right,
it's a
right.
party special and we're all on voice chat together, I expect complete debauchery
Oh,
and
100%.
crime